Hey, welcome back. Hi, how to manage tech with me, Dean Tuvey. And now the question I want to tackle is, where do the projects come from in an ITSM world that frames it? And then I'm going to pull all this together in the final lesson. Let's go and have a look then at where the projects come from. All right. So it all starts with, what are the goals of the organization? So ultimately what's happening here is we have some sort of governance layer. So we have either an IT steering committee, or we have a subcommittee off the board that runs IT, or we just have a startup and we have a bunch of guys with some exciting ideas. But essentially we have the goals of the organization and what it is that we're trying to achieve. And then over the sort of longer term, we have a plan as to how we're going to achieve those goals. So what we need to do is come up with a strategy. And for that, we're going to need to use a practice known as strategy management, where we actually formulate a strategy. And our strategy is going to produce, I'm going to call it a roadmap, could be a program. So our long-term strategy takes the shape of a product roadmap, for example, services roadmap as well. And then what we're going to need to do is feed that with some financials and some risks. So what we do is we take the goals that we're seeking, and we take the finance or the resources that we have along with our risk appetite, we feed that into our strategy. Now essentially what we're talking about here is a value strategy, and value results when you're able to achieve a level of benefit for an acceptable level of cost and risk. So let's feed our financial concerns and our risk concerns into our strategy using dedicated practices and dedicated people in that regard. In the ITSM world, we have practices known as financial management, and this in fact looks like your regular budgeting and accounting, but it's IT financial management. So it's a dedicated subset, as well as we have risk management. Again, a reminder that it's IT risk, and it's going to feed into our strategy as well, what we're willing to take on. In terms of our roadmap, what we're going to need to do is we're going to just socialize this roadmap with our users. They're going to have input to that, and our customers, and they're going to have their own demands that they're placing on that, and what projects they're expecting to be able to get launched first and so on. So what we need to do then is we need to feed that input into our roadmap. And what we're going to do is use a practice known as business relationship management. Remember, I talked about the business relationship management professional in the constellation of best practice frameworks out there. So this is a practice where we're actively engaged with our customer community, not unlike account management or sales management. If you're an external provider, if you're an internal provider, then it's an internal IT liaison crew who spend time chatting to the customers, trying to understand their needs and matchmaking those to potential solutions. Demand management is something that once upon a time existed as a separate activity, but it now looks like two things: managing project demand, but also managing resource demand. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and put those two things in. And so here's my business relationship management. Now that name has changed of late in, say, ITIL, but it's a very well-established framework in its own right, and it's also the name that's still given it in ISO 20000. So I'm going to stick with that just because of the momentum that it already has. And here what I'm going to do is put my demand management underneath, which essentially is managing demand from customers largely by getting them all in a room and showing them all the work that they need, that they're expecting to be delivered by IT. And then using that forum to prioritize the contents of that roadmap. Now what happens is that roadmap is then going to land as a portfolio which is going to be managed for value, right? And so what I'm going to do here then is add in an artifact known as a service portfolio and the service portfolio management practice that follows on and executes on that roadmap. Let's have a look at that then. So here's our service portfolio. Now this is both an artifact and it's a practice of portfolio management. Portfolio management is simply any kind of picking winners and losers. So you've got project portfolio or asset portfolio management or investment portfolios. So how do you manage a portfolio? Basically, it's about picking winners and losers. If you start out with a set of candidates you can invest in, just imagine like a recruitment exercise where you get 100 people applying for a job. And what you do is you go through a series of interviews, checking referees, second interviews, and ultimately getting down to a short list. And then you rank them and start making offers. Well, it's the same thing with projects. We get a whole lot of candidate projects in, we put some business cases on them, we go through a series of stages filtering out the less viable ones until we wind up with some candidate projects that we're going to kick off. And so too in service portfolio management, again based on how much value they're going to offer to the business. Now you can see I've started some arrows there to indicate that we also need some input to our portfolio. And in particular what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the role of architecture in terms of providing a lens on what's going to be interoperable with what we already have, what's going to be able to exploit reusability of what we've already got with aims such as simplicity. These are going to be influences and factors into our portfolio, forming up, say, for example, our business cases, along with innovation. Now, innovation's not part of the ITIL framework, but it's part of the COBIT framework. And yes, there is actually a practice around having some innovation. Let's go and add those two into our picture. So I'm going to put innovation on top here. And underneath, I'm going to show you architecture. You could be saying, come on, Dean, architecture comes first, and then we do portfolio management first, and then we do program management. Absolutely. Look, this is a gross simplification, but I think the basics are here, and I think they're pretty good. So this is certainly from a learning point of view, not a bad way to tackle it. Now, of course, some of these are going to continue all the way through. Relationship management, all the way through from the inception, all the way through to landing the solution into the live environment, delivering value, and even the first early reviews of the solution and how it's going. Right, so some of these are going to continue. Finance, for example, risk management, these are through lines all the way through the business. But I'm starting them up here at a high level, at a strategic, high planning level, at a long-term level. So these are big risks and big economics you're dealing with finance. You'll have finance and risks that you're dealing with at the design and the tactical stages. You'll have operational risks that you're managing, and you'll have project risks that you're managing. But these are the big risks here. These are the big ones we need to get nailed and understand. Service portfolio management is now going to produce a set of proposals or business cases, if you like, that are going to launch our projects. Remember, we're trying to get to how do we get projects out of this. So let's go and add that in. So here we are with some business cases or some justifications, if you like. Could be lean canvases, could be business canvas. And ultimately that's going to launch our project, which connects us to our next stage, which is our design stage. And that moves us into what we call the tactical stage. So this is essentially a long-term strategic picture. This is dealing with things like governance, long-term management of the IT organization. And when you start kicking up a project, we move into what we call the tactical, and that's the sort of the medium term, 6 to 18 months. Then most of the tactical work is around solutions, upgrades to solutions and rolling out solutions. And of course, that's followed by the operations stage, which is the live environments and the running of those solutions and the operations of those. Okay, I hope that helps. So that's our fourth and final process skeleton from the ITSM world. Most of that's out of ITIL 4. There's a few things I've skipped, but that's all right. I've also added in there some stuff from COBIT 2019, which I happen to like. Plus, I've let a bit of ISO 20 filter in. Now, this is the point that I just want to make quickly here. You often need to bring a bunch of frameworks together. Now, the beauty is that ITIL is trying to increasingly become comprehensive and cover all of your IT, like an IT encyclopedia. There's lots of gaps and lots of opportunities for other frameworks to come in and do it better. For example, project management, portfolio management in ITIL is very, very lightweight, as is risk and architecture and so on. We're going to go to other frameworks for depth on that. What ITIL does is offer you a reasonably comprehensive picture. COBIT 2, Control Objectives for IT, one of my favourite auditing frameworks, is great for bringing a whole far more interconnected and cohesive sort of lens on the interactions and integrations, plus it's got things like innovation. That'll do us for now. I've got one more lesson I want to show you how to integrate projects and the service management world. This is one of our first major bridges that we're going to build between these two frameworks. Join me for that lesson. Thank you very much. I'm Dean Tuvey. I hope you're learning how to manage your tech. If you like this video, then hit the like button and subscribe. Remember to hit the bell notification so you'll be updated when I release a new lesson. And feel free to share this lesson with anyone you think who might get value out of it. I've added some cards to the next lessons you might want to watch after this one. Feel free to ask me any questions or leave a comment below, along with any ideas you have for future videos. Thanks very much for watching. I look forward to chatting to you more soon.